High Velocity Wrestling is a professional wrestling promotion based in Western North Carolina. HVW's events provide a family atmosphere featuring old school pro wrestling with a modern day flair, giving a little something for everyone. Hey, what is up? Welcome to the HVW Podcast, the official podcast for High Velocity Wrestling. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and we're here to give you the latest news and rumors surrounding the best pro wrestling promotion in the Carolinas, as well as exclusive interviews that you will only find here. Please remember to visit us online at highvelocitywrestling.com and follow us on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The links are available in the episode's description. This is episode number 13, and yes, we're moving right along. We're back, continuing our conversations with the HVW roster as always, trying to keep you, the fans, connected to the company and its stars. Today is a very special episode. We've had a few technical difficulties. It's taken a little while to get our feet on the ground, but we are off and running here finally. Thank goodness for that, because I've been very much looking forward to this, well, for months on end. Let's just put it to you that way. For a lot of different reasons. And you've seen the headline. You know that we've been hyping this thing up for several days by the time you're listening to this. And you know who we've got. We've got the unbreakable one, the one and only Hayden Ramsey. Hayden, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hey, Tom. How you doing?
Doing great. We talked a little bit before we went live, or actually started recording today. We had some technical difficulties. Thank goodness we've got those things out of the way. I always say that if it's live, it's not an accident. So if we happen to flip up during the recording of this, we're just going to let it roll and just, move on and try to get going. So I know the fans out there have been anxious to hear what you've had to say. We have a lot to get into today, a lot to talk about. But first things first, we have to start with the most obvious topic of the day for you personally, for you and your career in pro wrestling. I have to start with your recovery. You had knee surgery on April 30th, I believe it was. Talk to me about how it's been for you since your knee surgery. How are things going for you right now?
It's been rough. I'm not going to lie. Originally, as you know beforehand, I had only had a sprained ACL and some meniscus issues, and they said I could still wrestle. After Kaitlyn decided to attack me, we'll get into that later. The doctors took an MRI and said that my ACL was completely ruptured. Essentially, they didn't have any attachment points any longer. It had split on both ends. And so they had to take out essentially my hamstring and make a new one. So that required a lot of drilling into my bone. So it's a little bit more than just your typical ACL surgery. It's called an ACL reconstruction because they had to take one of my actual hamstrings and drill into my femur and my tibia. So there's been a lot of residual pain from that, especially on days like today where it's rainy. So my bones are hurting. I feel like a 90-year-old woman.
Well, and I know that you just said, I'm glad you brought that up, that you were having issues already. And we covered this in more than one episode of the podcast here for HVW, that you did not need surgery before First Strike. The issue with Kaitlyn, as you said, we'll definitely get to it. You didn't need surgery before that, and then after the attack, you had to have it. It was unavoidable. And I know that you and I spoke a couple of different times since all this happened, and you admitted to me that actually it went back to our first event, Resurrected on January 25th, and the match with Sadie Lee Moss, which again, we'll get to that also. So it sounds like this thing went back, to the first of the year for you in terms of the injury.
Yeah, so it had originally occurred in December, and I kind of just let it go. I could still walk. I could still kind of run. So I just let it go. And then on my match with Sadie, there's actually a point in that match where I felt it pop. And I kind of knew that it was getting worse. But I went to the doctors. I got an MRI. They said that, it's still attached, but it's sprained. So they told me, I had to do some PT and rest and all that good stuff. And then after the crowbar hit my knee, that was it. It had to completely require surgery. I couldn't walk, couldn't put any weight on it. So $43,000 later, I have a new knee.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Well, I can tell you for sure from my perspective where I was sitting that night, and I know you can hear me on commentary because I kind of lost it, and I think I yelled, "Dude, she's got a crowbar," because I didn't. Geez, I didn't expect it, and one of the questions I have regarding the whole thing is where in the world did the crowbar come from? We haven't had that answered to any great degree. I regret not asking Kaitlyn that. As you know, she's appeared on the show as well. I can't.
Well, I'm aware. I'm aware.
You've heard it, I'm sure, by now.
Yeah, and I have a lot of stuff that I would like to clear up because she's completely a hypocrite. But we'll get there.
Well, and I really regret not asking her the question where the weapon came from in the first place. Maybe not all the fans know how a wrestling ring is put together, but a crowbar is not usually a tool that's used. And it seemed to be the only thing. She knew where it was. She knew exactly where to grab it. And she says it wasn't premeditated. I have differing opinions. I know you do too.
Oh, it was absolutely premeditated. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it couldn't be, right? It certainly seems that way.
No, there's no way that anyone would put a random crowbar under there unless she personally brought it, which, by the way, I drove her to that show. I did not drive her back, needless to say. But I did drive her to that show, and she must have had it in her bag with her, and I had no idea.
Yeah, that was it was definitely shocking. And like you said, there's two versions of this story. We've heard her side, and we were going to get you on the show much earlier than this, but of course you had a lot of things to deal with, which I completely understand. But I know the fans have been waiting to hear your side of this. And as we've said since we started here today, I know you've got a lot to say, and I definitely want to give you the platform to air your grievances and to get everything out in the open, because she's had her opportunity, and I think you definitely deserve your chance to speak your mind, and you're definitely going to get that here today. But I got to move back just a little bit here before we really get into the meat of this thing, because we mentioned Resurrected on January 25th, the match against Sadie Lee Moss. You two tore the house down. You made history. First time women competed in HVW. It was huge for us. It was huge for the company, for all the talent in the locker room, for the fans who had never seen women compete in the HVW ring. I don't think they knew what to expect, but I think from the moment that you confronted Sadie during that interview to the moment the first bell rang, I don't think that anyone in the crowd saw two women. I think they just saw two pro wrestlers, which I'm sure was the goal. Talk to me about that night. Talk to me about the vibe that you had from the company, from the environment. And of course, you had a lot of issues with Sadie going into the night. How did all that come out for you?
Yeah, so getting to HVW, I will say it's a lot nicer than I expected, which I greatly appreciated. Everyone was friendly, showed respect, everything that I could ask for from a wrestling promotion. I knew that it was going to be a big night, but I also knew that I had a lot of issues to deal with Sadie personally. For me, I wanted to make history, which we did, and I wanted to put on the best show, but at the same time, you kind of saw at the end of that match, my emotions got the best of me, and for me, it was more of proving a point. It became a brawl, essentially. It was no longer a wrestling match. We did our stuff in the ring, and I'm sorry to take that away from the fans, but at the time, my anger was just so fueled that I was just looking to beat the crap out of her. So I was doing anything and everything I could just to take her down, which is ultimately why we ended up in a count out, which is funny that Kaitlyn made a point about me not winning a match, but I'll address that later. But yeah, I feel incredibly honored to be the first women's match at HVW, but at the same time, I feel like I didn't really give the fans exactly what I could have, just because I was a little selfish in that moment, because I wanted to handle my issues with Sadie.
Well, we've had Sadie on the show as well, and I'm sure you know that. And she had nothing negative to say about you at all. She, as you know, she stands up for herself. She's not intimidated easily. And I made the comment to her during that show, I believe, that you and I crossed paths in the locker room, and you kind of brushed past me, and I'm 6'3". I'm not exactly a small dude. And you didn't, you made some impact, and you just didn't want anybody to get in your way. And I thought, God, she's on a mission. So Sadie knew what she was in for. You guys had issues already. But as we said, she never backed down. I found something very interesting, though, that I found out through a mutual friend, that she was one of the first people to contact you after what happened at First Strike. I mean, did you expect that? Did you think she's going to reach out considering the issues you've had with her in the past?
I didn't. I honestly thought that her and Kaitlyn would be the last two people to reach out to me. I will say that I respected it. I admire her for reaching out to me. It does show that she is, a good person in and out of the ring. Doesn't mean that, our issues are resolved, but she is a decent person in and outside of the ring, and I appreciated her checking in on me. It's definitely more than I can say for Kaitlyn, obviously. But it did surprise me. I thought that bridge had kind of been burned. But maybe me and Sadie can work something out, maybe down the road, handle it in the ring and getting each other's respect back. I don't know. That's going to be up to her.
I think there's something to be said for, bitter rivals and ended up good friends because that level of respect has been reached. And who knows, in time, maybe, as you said, maybe the day will come when you two can maybe, start to heal old wounds and sort of come together on some level. It seems like you both now have a mutual enemy. As you know, Kaitlyn made threats towards Sadie also. And for as far as we know right now, Sadie's fine. She's healthy. There's been no sort of sneak attacks of any kind or anything of that nature, which is good. So we will continue to monitor that. In terms of the issues that you and Sadie had going into Resurrected, you guys are polar opposites. Of everybody on that card, and I mean, the only thing I could compare it to is maybe Mitch Hurley and Crucifix, two guys who couldn't be more different. But you and Sadie seem like you couldn't be more different. But when the bell rang and it was time to go to war, man, she stepped up and she gave as good as she got. And suddenly it was no longer about the differences. It was about these two women really want to win this match. It was about pride. It was about competition. I mean, your respect for her as a competitor had to have been raised in that night, I'm sure, yes?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, I still don't think that she's the best wrestler. I think that I could still beat her one-on-one. But I do respect her. She did give me more of a fight than I thought she would, especially when we got outside the ring. And, I was giving her chops and giving her some forearms as hard as I possibly could. And she would just come back and slap me in the face. So,
right.
I actually appreciated that. I appreciate a good fight. I don't necessarily like to completely dominate someone because then I'm bored. I'm tired of, this isn't the first time I've had a brawl. I'm tired of just, being the bigger girl and then getting the win. I want some competition. I want someone to hit me back. I want to put on a good show. I want people to be entertained, but at the same time, it's kind of selfish. I want someone that's going to challenge me. So I will give her credit. She did challenge me.
Well, the foundation that you guys laid for women's wrestling in HVW is huge, and it's no small thing. And I truly believe that your feud, your rivalry, the match in particular, the rematch of sorts at First Strike, I mean, these things are going to be talked about for years to come in this company. I firmly believe that. I asked Sadie on the show about how it feels knowing that she is an inspiration, a role model for some of the younger fans, some of the girls in the crowd that come to the HVW shows, as well as the women who will follow after her in our company. And I'm going to ask you the same question. Have you considered that? Have you stopped to think about, as you said, you're laying in the chops and you're hitting the forearms, and now the corner of your eye, there's a little girl in the front row and she's cheering or she's booing. I mean, does that kind of thing affect you personally when you look out and see the girls in the crowd and whatnot?
I won't say that it affects me in the moment because I'm so laser focused, but as I visit things and as I rewatch my matches and I see that there are kids, especially young girls in the crowd, it does kind of hit me to a degree. I am different. Obviously, I think I'm a little bit different than everyone that's kind of out there right now. I am a female wrestler, and that's what I want to be. I don't do the glorified makeup. I don't do the skimpy outfits. I don't show things to get attention. That's not who I am. I wear boots, I wear pants, and I wear a gear underneath it. The only thing that is shown is my arms. And that's because the focus during a wrestling match is on the wrestling. For me, I am so sick and tired of wrestling being sexualized and that being the reason that girls are getting matches and girls are being put on shows. I am completely against it. I think that sets us back multiple years. Let's talk about 2018. We had Evolution in WWE. What are they fighting for? They were fighting to get out of the bra and panty era and be treated as wrestlers. And I'm not saying that you can't be feminine and you can't be, I guess, embrace your sexuality as a female wrestler, but I don't think that that needs to be the key thing that's being played off of. And I see so much of that happening in the indie scene, and honestly, it just makes me sick because I feel we're personally taking ourselves back to an era that people fought so hard to get away from.
I couldn't agree with you on that point more. And I've said this multiple times here on the show and in conversations and on the website as well, and on Facebook, for that matter, is that we have come a long way. And I was one of those fans during the Attitude Era. It was me and several friends of mine would sit there during the Monday Night Wars and flip back and forth between Raw and Nitro. And the minute the bra and panties matches happened, we flipped back to Nitro. And we're talking about several red-blooded American men, as the saying goes. And I didn't care. I'm like, I'm watching for the wrestling. Like, I can appreciate that they're beautiful. I get it. But as soon as the clothes come off, and, you would think it would be the opposite. You would think, oh, there's going to be, oh, my God, guys, look at this. Look out. And it was never like that. I can't speak for everyone. But it was never like that because at our core, we were pro wrestling fans. I didn't care about all that nonsense. And I love the fact that, and by the way, you're not the first woman to tell me this. I mean, and this is another reason why you're in the HVW locker room, by the way, is because when it came time to build the women's division, we wanted people involved who felt the way you feel. And we weren't looking for sex, to put it bluntly. We weren't looking for booty shorts as far as the eye could see. We weren't looking for strippers. I mean, not to be disrespectful toward anyone here, but it's not what we wanted. We wanted pro wrestlers. And I think that's what sets HVW apart from other companies. And again, no disrespect to any other companies out there, but like you said, we're not in it for that. And I think it's not about thinking. It definitely shows in your game. It shows in Sadie's. And I think the examples that you two have set so far for this entire division, they're going to be followed for sure. So you talked about what your feelings are in terms of how maybe women should carry themselves, and you've worked too hard and come too far to go back to that. Take me back a little bit here, if you will. Talk to me about your inspirations to become a pro wrestler. When did all of this sort of mayhem begin for you?
I remember the first time I ever watched wrestling, I was at I call him my papa because I'm Southern, my grandfather's house, probably in like 2000. And my grandfather was watching wrestling and I was like, what is this? I don't understand this. And I didn't get it at first, but then I instantly got hooked. And then I was a SmackDown girl and we were kind of poor, so we didn't have cable and we lived in the farm. So there was no way we're getting satellite. So I was always a SmackDown girl. And so every Friday night I would go over to my grandfather's house, 8:00, we'd watch wrestling. And when we started doing that, I started to notice that when the girls came on, if the girls came on, I should say, I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. Obviously for the reasons that you previously stated, and that's not any disrespect to them. Unfortunately, that's what they were told to do.
Right.
It's nothing against them. It's just, I didn't find it entertaining. And obviously with the sexualization, I wouldn't find it entertaining as a straight female. So I am looking at, the people that are on the roster, and I fell in love with Jeff Hardy. To this day, Jeff Hardy is my favorite wrestler. Always has been. My style is nothing like Jeff Hardy because I will not be on top of ladders doing swanton bombs. I am not doing that.
Right.
But I still admire him. Always have, and I admire him as a person. He's not one to shy away from the fact that he's made multiple life mistakes, has been given multiple chances, and there's even a story on him now that this is his last chance in WWE. So I kind of relate to someone who's had the struggles and has fought back and has been taken down the road again and had to fight their way back, because I've had to do similar things in my life. But Jeff Hardy definitely he was different. He was different. The face paint came along a little after that, something that just made him stand out. I thought he was just the coolest dude ever. Still do. That's still my favorite guy. But then I would say Rey Mysterio as well, which again I'm nothing like. But then I also fell in love with Batista when Batista came to SmackDown.
Right.
And I guess you could say that my style more emulates him. More the smash mouth, powerhouse, in your face kind of person. That's just what works for me. That's worked in real life. I've had to fight all my life. And he's really the one that kind of put it in my mind that maybe I could do it. Which sounds kind of weird because he's this big, jacked up, muscular guy. But I remember watching a DVD at my house, and it was kind of showing his backstory about how he was into drugs and he was on the street and he was a bouncer and he came from nothing. And because, I mean, essentially, let's face it, because he was a meathead, Vince gave him a chance. But what he made out of that opportunity was what was inspirational to me. Because unfortunately, I hate to agree with Kaitlyn, but I do agree in the sense that there were no women that looked like me on that roster.
Right.
There still really isn't, to be honest with you. I don't look like Nia Jax. I don't look like Awesome Kong. But I am a bigger female. So for me, I had no females to truly idolize in this sense. Lita, because, the Hardys and everything, Lita definitely has a special place in my heart. But again, she didn't look like me. I can't do the same things that she could do. So I stuck to the guys for my inspiration.
Well, and I think it's perfectly fine to be inspired by people that you don't end up basically, I guess you could say, emulating down the road. Like, name a rock and roll band, a rock and roll singer in the past 40, 50 years that was not inspired by the Beatles. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne was a huge Beatles fan, but that's not what he did. I mean, he did his own thing, but it didn't mean that he couldn't be inspired by them. Like, there wasn't an Ozzy or a Black Sabbath before Ozzy and Black Sabbath. There wasn't a Hayden Ramsey before Hayden Ramsey. So you can be inspired by someone, but not necessarily be what they were or try to emulate their style. So, I mean, I totally respect that. So you were talking about, that the SmackDown roster of that time. You're really bleeding into what I believe is the best SmackDown roster of all time. Because you're talking,
oh, absolutely.
You talk about Edge and Kurt Angle and Eddie, and of course Batista was sort of the king of the mountain. I mean, in my opinion, that was the best the Blue Brands ever looked.
Absolutely. It was definitely my show. And I through the years, I've gone back and I've watched Raw during the same time. And I still believe that SmackDown was better than Raw, 100%.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And then, of course, Heyman has to, do what he does as only he can do. And then things start getting muddied and then the whole point becomes lost. And they mix the rosters up and it all becomes a sham or whatever. But it's beside the point, but I agree with you. That's totally the best roster of all time for that show, without a doubt. So you said that you were watching this with your grandfather, right? So at what point, as you're starting to get older, was there a point that you reached when you said, I think I want to do this? Was there a match? Was there a wrestler? Was there a moment that came for you when you made the decision, I want to go get trained? What happened for you to get you that point?
So my story's a little bit different. Basically, my family didn't support wrestling whatsoever. Wow. They thought it was stupid. They hated that I watched it. I would beg them to let me go to shows. They wouldn't take me to any shows. I begged them. I would harass my mom to let me order pay-per-views. Right. Couldn't get the pay-per-views. Literally anything to do with wrestling, like even the posters on my wall, they hated it. So I kind of grew up with the shame of being a wrestling fan. Even in school, I think if I remember correctly, you were talking about how it was kind of something you didn't really want to talk about at school.
Yes.
Because, people bullying and, oh, don't you know this and that. But for me, it's something I connected to my grandfather with. And that's really what started it. I had no idea how to get into wrestling. I had no idea. I didn't know there were schools. I honestly thought that you had to be a model or a bodybuilder or an actor or something along those lines in order for WWE to reach out to you. And granted, this is before I even knew about any other companies. I only knew about WWE at the time. And I thought that you had to fit one of those categories. Otherwise, they're not going to call a nobody that lives on a farm. Like, what are you thinking? You don't have a chance to do this. So I was actually in grad school. I was 23 years old when this kind of made a full circle for me. I was in a sports law class during my grad school, and the teacher happened to be Michael Bakikio's wife from High Spots. I don't know if you're
Oh,
aware
okay. Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah. I know the
Michael. Yeah.
name. Yeah.
So Michael's the owner of High Spots, and long story short, she asked me if I wanted to go help with their WrestleCon events in 2018, and I went down, and Michael at the end of it told me, he's like, hey, if you want to train, if you're serious about it, you let me know. So one day I got the courage. I texted him, was like, hey, I want to do this. And then that's when he introduced me to George South, who is my trainer still. Something that's a little bit different from our school than any other school is that we have continuous training. It's not like an 8-week where you graduate and you're gone. It's not like that. I could have been there, and we have people that have been there for 5, 6, 7 years, and they still come to training on Tuesday night. As long as you pay your monthly fee, then you can train. And that's also something that kind of drew me to it, because I didn't really want to be put on a timeline. I was in grad school. I was giving it as much as my focus as I possibly could, but I also was trying to graduate. So I wanted somewhere that was going to, take the time with me. And George is a very patient person. If you ask him, he will tell you that I about made him pull his hair out. I came in, and my George nickname is Ronda Rousey for a reason,
Oh,
because
there you
I
go.
came in the first time I got in the ring, like guns blazing, like I wanted to fight everybody. And he made a statement like, calm down, Ronda Rousey, and that's what he calls me from here on out. I don't even think he knows my real name.
Right, right.
um, and But that's kind of how I got into it. And then George saw something in me, and kind of the rest is history.
And he is, and I spoke highly of George before because he deserves it, because he's earned it. He's a veteran. He's a legend in the sport for sure. I worked in a company 20 years ago now, and it's actually where Gary Benfield and I first met. Gary, of course, the owner and promoter of HVW. I was Gary's first manager back in the day, and we were bringing up George South and his boys on a regular basis, at least sometimes 3 to 4 times a month, and worked them into storylines. And he was part of the show. He often worked the main event or semi-main event, and we had spots worked up. At the time, I was general manager or commissioner or whatever it was I was called at the time, and I took it seriously. I tried to do a good job. We were a small company, we weren't going anywhere, but I was having fun, and we had some great wrestlers on that roster. And to this day, a lot of memories. Thomas Extreme started out with us there in that company, and of course, as I said, Gary was there, and a few guys that branched off from there and went to do their own thing later on in life. But I never forgot a lot of the stories that George would tell in the locker room. He would sort of hold court and tell stories about Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and, stuff back in the day, old NWA, that's my jam. I grew up in the 80s. I grew up in a Jim Crockett Promotions kind of guy. I got to tell you, man, your attitude and the style of wrestling that you seem to prefer, all of that stuff just sounds like territory to me. And it seems like you grew up just a generation late to appreciate that. As you got older and discovered wrestling and started, as you said, discovered more companies, did you go back and start researching the territories, especially after you started working with George?
Yeah, I have. I'm ashamed to admit this, but I didn't know who Terry Funk was.
Oh, wow.
And people are like, how do you not know that? And I'm like,
Right.
well, I was born in the 90s. So,
Right.
but I've definitely learned to really appreciate him and what he's done in the ring. He's actually become one of my favorites. I study a lot of that tape. So I'll be honest with you, I haven't studied a lot of it. But Terry Funk is right now my top pick. Besides George South, I will say that. Besides George.
And Terry's intensity personified. And I was going to use the word hardcore, and I think the word hardcore is just, I don't think it fits. I mean, people want to use that word with him, but Terry was one of the best that the industry's ever seen. I mean, he's a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I mean, he's done so much. He was one of the best wrestlers that Jim Cocker Promotions ever saw. I mean, and, you know, the hardcore stuff came later on in his career. I get it. But, yeah, I mean, as far as having a role model, and someone that sort of you aspire to be, or you appreciate his game, I mean, he's one of the best for my money. You spoke before about, you know, not being the typical female and everything, and not being sort of the typical, I guess, runway model that you're used to seeing in WWE and that kind of thing. And I've, you know, Kaitlyn, to her credit, has said that before too. But where you guys differ, and I'm hearing a lot of similarities, but I'm hearing a lot of differences too, is your attitude. She sort of seemed to walk into this, especially training and everything that came after, as if she was owed something, as if, well, I look at the people around me, look at me, of course I'm going to dominate, and she's going to steamroll everyone. And I got to be honest, not knowing what to expect when we started the interview here today, I kind of maybe expect a little bit of that, but I'm not hearing that at all with you. It sounds to me like that, even right now, that you went into this with a completely different mindset, that you didn't go in this to think, well, I'm going to kill everybody here and dominate everybody here. Of course, you had the will to get in the ring and do your thing, but I mean, did it cross your mind at some point that, well, I'm just gonna clean the floor with everybody in here? I mean, was that your mindset? Because from where I'm sitting, it doesn't sound like that's where your head was at that time.
No, see, where me and Kaitlyn differ is the fact that I have respect for people, and I don't feel like I'm owed something. She always feels like she's owed something. Doesn't matter if it's in the ring, outside the ring, she thinks that people owe her something. And that's the problem that I have with her. And we've spoken about it before. I came into wrestling knowing a shrivel of what I know now. And I came in with an open mind. I wanted to learn. As George says, the best way to learn at his training is to watch and shut up. Don't ask questions, just watch. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And as I started training, I fell in love with it. I caught the bug, as people say. And I would reach out to multiple different people asking for advice. Savannah Evans actually is one, because we trained together. Savannah was great in assisting me with that at the time. Now's a different story, but at the time she was helpful, and she kind of took me in and, you know, would spend a little bit of extra time with me. So I put in the effort that it takes to make yourself great, whereas Kaitlyn comes in and expects to be great, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Chip on her shoulder, like the world owes her something, and that this is just going to be easy for her. And, you know, let's call it like it is. Love her, hate her. I mean, maybe it has been. I mean, she's a beast in that ring. But I definitely see, as I said, as similar as you two guys are, I definitely see some differences in the way you approach your work in the ring. She's very methodical. She's very calculated. You came into that match with Sadie like a runaway steamroller. Like you were just not, you were full throttle. And you could have powered your way through if you wanted to do that. You could have worked a slow, methodical style. You weren't doing that. You were bum rushing Sadie in that ring. I mean, it was like, I don't know how to compare it. Vader maybe is how I compare it, where Vader could have just stood still and let the fight come to him, but he didn't want to do that. He wanted to go straight for the throat, and that's what you were doing. And it just seems like you feel like you have more to prove, and that you just want to make more of a statement, because as you said before, you're not trying to disrespect anyone. You just want to be the best. You know, it sounds hokey as it sounds. You want to be the best version of yourself that you can be. I definitely see that being the biggest difference between you and her in the ring.
Right. She takes the lazy approach, and that's what I call it. Anytime I see a fighter that's just sitting there waiting for someone to get back up and crawl their way out of the rope so that you can just hit them and knock them down, I think that's lazy. I think that that's actually you being a coward. There was actually multiple times in our fight that you could see me telling Sadie to get up, because I wanted to fight her. I wanted her at her best, because if I can beat her at her best, then that shows me I'm better than her. Whereas Kaitlyn takes the short routes, and a win is a win, and it doesn't matter how I got it. Essentially is exactly what she did to me. She took
Right.
me out. She said it in the interview. She said, "Hey, I took her out. It made a spot for me." She came out and said that she made a spot for herself because she couldn't earn one.
I got to tell you, I didn't see that coming. I didn't know what to expect when I started talking to her, but I didn't expect that. I mean, that I've heard a lot of stuff over the years, but that really, I was going to say the word confidence. Maybe it's ego. Maybe
It's
it's both.
100% ego. It is 100%. That is fake confidence coming from her. And if you can't see through that, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. It is complete ego.
Well, as you said, two different approaches in how you do things in the ring. If you dominate as she wants to do, and you're just throwing girls around like they're not there and not giving them a chance to compete or whatnot, then when you win, you're kind of expected to win. So really, who did you beat, right? So who cares? But your approach is more like you said. You want Sadie at her best. You want her on her feet. You don't want to beat her when she's down her back. You want to beat her when she's up, could look you in the eye. Person to person, man to man, as they say, and you can take her head off. I mean, all due respect to Sadie, I love Sadie, no disrespect, but that, as I said, two different approaches to the game. But yeah, she flat out admitted that, and you know her a lot better than I do. Well, I mean, you did at one point. You guys were tight. I know you were really good friends. I mean, you were at the merchandise tables that night together, and you guys were fine, and you weren't talking to a whole lot of any other people backstage, which I get it. You focused on the match at hand, but you two guys were thick as thieves. And again, it's one of the most shocking things I've ever seen play out in HVW for sure. I mean, I didn't see it coming. Have you had any contact with her at all since all this happened? Has either side reached out to the other? Or is that just not happening at this point?
No, there's no communication. She has nothing to say to me, and I don't think she could say anything to me that's going to make this okay or make this any slightly better. I have nothing to say to her. The next time I see her, I'm going to punch her in the face and I'm going to destroy her. That's what's going to happen. I don't want to see her. I don't want to talk to her. I want to meet her in that ring, and I want to handle it where we're supposed to handle it, not backstage as a coward using a crowbar to take me out for 10 months.
Well, and we said we were going to get to it. We might as well get to it. I know the fans have been waiting on it. The whole thing happened February 29th at First Strike. It was our second big event of the year. Unfortunately, it was the last event due to the COVID situation going on around us right now. Hope everyone out there is staying healthy and safe. That's another topic. Take me back to February 29th. We get to the match. It's you and Kaitlyn against Sadie Lee Moss and Lindsay Pike. Tag team match. Continuation of the issue between you and Sadie, obviously. Things seemed like they were okay in the beginning until Kaitlyn didn't want to tag. And you seemed okay with that. You're like, well, you got this. Go ahead. And then it just kept on going. And I remember sitting at commentary with Logan Lockhart. And I told Logan, I said, dude, she's not tagging. I don't understand. And then it became... What started as just a minor thing became more of an issue, and it was very blatantly obvious to me that, okay, I think there's a problem here. At what point, walk me through that, at what point did you know something doesn't feel right, something's going on here?
So we had originally planned to, our point of attack essentially was quick tags. So, she would do whatever to Sadie or Lindsay. She'd tag me in quick tags that we were always fresh, coming there hot. And I was going to start the match. And that's where it began, was when we got into the ring, she kind of pushed me to the side and said, no, I'm starting. I said, okay, all right, fine. You can start. Match begins. I can't remember. I believe she was working Sadie at the beginning. May have been Lindsay. I'm sorry. But she's fighting. She's doing a good job. She has them down. She goes for the pin. They kick out. Okay. She has more work to do. Like, I'm cheering her on the side, and then something happens and they make a tag. They come in. They start beating her up. I'm asking her to come for the tag. She stands up and she says, no, it's okay. I got this. Okay, this isn't what our game plan was, but sure, all right, you got this. Go for it. Match continues. She's continuing to get beat up. She gets back to her feet. I ask for a tag. She yells at me and says, no, I have this. um, which at the time it took everything I could not to just go off in the middle of the ring.
Right.
Um, but I'm fresh and I'm on the outside and I'm ready to get in. As you saw multiple times, I'm asking for the tag. I want to come in. You need to rest. You need to recuperate. Let me come in. And this is why I think it's funny that she said I was the one selfish, that I wanted the Glory to come in and take the pin, when in actuality, she's the selfish one, because she already admitted she was trying to make a spot for herself. If she's trying to make a spot for herself, what is she going to try to do? She's going to try and impress you guys in the back. That's exactly what she was trying to do. She was trying to take up the whole match to prove herself to the people in the back instead of working as a team. So she, after multiple attempts of me tagging or attempting to tag her yelling at me, saying she's got it, I had enough. I'm like, all right, well, if we're going to win on your own, if you're going to win on your own, you're going to lose on your own. You clearly don't need me. If this was a tag match, you would have already tagged me in by now. And she says that I turned it into a handicap match, which she took on herself, if you remember correctly, because she wouldn't tag me in. She took that on, okay? And the moment that she needed me, I was teaching her a lesson. She wanted to be selfish, so in that moment, I got out of the ring and I walked to the back. Because she didn't need me, I wasn't going to help her. I'm not going to only come in when you're in desperate need. You know, we're supposed to be a tag. We're supposed to work together. It's about a partnership. It's about chemistry. It's not about you going out there and trying to get yourself over with the people in the back. That's not what this is about. This is about getting the win. And I think she came into that match with the mindset of, hey, I'm not on this roster, but Hayden is. So my plan of attack is going to be to start the match and not tag Hayden in so that they're forced to watch me wrestle. That's what I think her whole plan of attack was. And that's why I got pissed off and I went to the back.
Yeah, it's so funny during her interview, because at first she claimed that the whole thing was the game plan, that she was going to do all the heavy lifting through the match, and then you were going to come in and sort of be the cleanup hitter in the end to get the pin, and she just wanted to sort of be the heavy and be the muscle through the whole match. But then she flat out said, like you said, she flat out admitted that she was making a spot for herself. So I'm not sure who she was trying to fool in the podcast. I don't really know, and she had to have known that you were going to hear it. So, as I said before, when I was on commentary, of course, and when I saw her grab that crowbar and go backstage, I mean, it was obvious what was going to happen. She was looking for you. She found you pretty quick. You just got back there, and attacked you. She knew your knee had issues with your knee, and so she took you out. And by the time I got back there, she was gone, and the crowbar was laying there, and it was bedlam. And I remember, not only did Sadie reach out to you, but after, Sadie was sort of recuperating backstage, I know she spoke to you before you were taken to the hospital that night. Then you and I had a confrontation later, and you were very upset. Obviously, not the best time for me to try to get an interview. I get it. But, generally concerned for your well-being. And, what's going through? It's kind of an odd question. What's going through your head as she's coming after you? Did she blindside you? Did she come from behind? Did you see her coming? Walk me through that.
I had gotten down the stairs through the curtain and headed to the locker room. And before you make the turn to go to the locker room, she had hit me with a crowbar. I didn't even see her coming. Wow. No one said anything. Watch out. No one said anything. All I feel is this metal crowbar hit my knee, feel my knee pop, and go down. And that was it. And then this burst of pain that I can't describe. If anyone has torn an ACL, they know what I'm talking about. It's completely helpless. I was genuinely concerned that she was going to keep going because I couldn't defend myself. Mm-hmm. I couldn't get up. Thankfully, she did walk away and she left. But at that time, I mean, who knows what else would have happened.
Well, I know we had security backstage because everyone heard you scream. And that came from out of nowhere. I mean, we knew something was wrong. And then we heard the crowbar hit the floor. Security was back there. By the time everyone got back there, including myself, she was gone. And she'd I still can't get over this, stuck her head through the curtain and said, "Don't worry, Hayden Ramsey won't be there." And by be there, she was talking about our next event, which was supposed to have been in April. Again, shocking. I just, it's pro wrestling. As they say, this ain't ballet. But, when it comes to something that happens outside the ropes, I don't know. Maybe I'm naive. I've got a different way in my head of how things should be done. I just don't agree with, if you got an issue with somebody, take it up in the ring. I don't know. Maybe that's, like I said, maybe that's naive. I mean, had this thing broken down and she had challenged you to a match, I'm sure you would have accepted, or at least I don't want to put words in your mouth. But then
absolutely,
she didn't give you a chance. Accepted. Like I said, she just took it into her own hands.
She took the lazy approach, as I mentioned earlier. She took me out because she knew she couldn't beat me. That's facts. And I want to point out something to you here, Tom. Mm-hmm. My relationship with Kaitlyn goes back all the way to training. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to put this one word out there to describe Kaitlyn, and that is jealous. And I'll explain why I know for a fact that Kaitlyn is jealous. We both started at George South's training. We trained together. The difference is Kaitlyn had already been training 2 months before I even came in. She started training before me. I started progressing. George started giving me more opportunities in the ring, more ring time, more stuff to do. And that bothered her. And I know for a fact it bothered her.
Right.
It wasn't anything I could do about it. I'm not going to tell George no. Who in their right mind would tell your trainer, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to hurt someone's feelings? Obviously, if I'm putting in the work and I'm progressing, I'm going to take the opportunities that are given to me. I started wrestling matches before she wrestled. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing all of these things before her, and I came in after her. And this is not me bragging. This is leading up to a point that I'm going to talk about. I started making a name for myself, essentially. I started the matches. I started getting on the road. I started getting in the cars with the guys and going to shows and introducing myself to people, putting in the work that she wasn't doing. She was sitting at home on the weekend. She wasn't putting her name out there or meeting any promoters or trying to get on a show or doing any of the grunt work by setting up the ring. She wasn't doing any of that. And once I got to HVW, she had heard that, me and Sadie are going to be in the first ever women's match. And when I told her that, she wasn't even supportive. And when I tell you she's not supportive, absolutely no support from her came from that conversation.
And she really had a problem with that, by the way. She brought that up on the show. She really had an issue with that.
Oh, I know she did. That's why I'm making this point. I know for a fact that she thinks that spot should have been hers, but it wasn't. She didn't do the work. She wants to be handed everything in this life, and she doesn't want to work for anything. She doesn't want to connect with people. She doesn't want to put herself out there to be vulnerable. She doesn't. She thinks everyone should come to her, and that's not how this business works. So me being a good friend, when we were going to do a tag match, I thought, hey, well, this is an opportunity that I have. Let me share the wealth. Let me bring Kaitlyn. She's a tough girl. I've seen, I saw her matches. I know what she's about. Let me bring her. And then the first thing she said on your podcast is they didn't show me the same respect they showed Hayden.
Right.
That's what this is all stemming from. This is all stemming from jealousy. And, jealousy's ugly, as they say. And, I mean, that it is what it is. Assaulting me with a crowbar outside of a wrestling arena is considered assault. Not that I would press charges because I'd rather handle things on my own anyway. But for you to have to go so low to get a spot that you're not even guaranteed to do anything with, it amazes me. Like, her biggest, I guess, achievement of this whole thing was not allowing my name to be on the match card for the first ever HVW Women's Championship. She took away my opportunity because I know that the tournament's coming up in June as of right now. She took away my opportunity to be the first ever women's champion. But I will say this: she didn't take away my opportunity to be the longest reigning women's champion, and
Right.
that's what I'm focusing on. That's what my training, my PT, that's what I'm focusing on. I may not be the first, but I'm going to be there the longest. And there's nothing that she's going to be able to do about it except for to assault me from behind again. And if that happens, then HVW, we got some issues.
Well, and not for nothing, but I think that you were definitely in the running for the championship tournament. And I'm not a matchmaker. I'm not on the board of executives. I wear a lot of hats in this company, but I'm not the guy making the matches. I can't say this for sure, but I don't know. I'd say she's probably going to be in the mix. That's the word. Maybe she did, carve out the spot that you had. I mean, that's the bad part for you. And I'm not saying anything you don't know, so all due respect. But the bad part for you is that you don't have the opportunity now, even if the COVID situation wasn't happening, which it is, unfortunately, you don't have the opportunity to get, and maybe revenge is the wrong word. I don't know how you're looking at it at this point, but you don't have the opportunity to get even because she's put you on the shelf. I mean, how in the world how do you temper yourself at this point? How do you bottle all that up and I don't know, get through your day? Because I know when all this went down, you blew our phones up. I know you did because you were trying to get a hold of her. You wanted to know what was going on, and in the meantime, we were contacting you. We're trying to see how you were physically, and it was a mess. The weekend that Sunday after first strike it was messed up, and I know you know that. How in the world do you go about your day to day right now, and not just put your fist through the wall? I mean, it's got to be hard.
Um, no one's saying I haven't put my fist through a wall.
Okay.
Um,
Just to clarify.
to, to be honest with you, at the very beginning, I was, let me say this as nicely as I can. I was appalled that Gary still had Kaitlyn on the card.
Hmm.
You're not putting my life at risk, but now you're putting 3 other people. She's proven that she's capable of doing this without you even knowing.
Right.
Why would you put her in that match? Why? Um, but then after my surgery, things started to get real. Couldn't walk, couldn't do, I mean, let's be ugly about it. I couldn't do any of the personal needs that I had to do as a human being on my own. It was very, very humbling that my sister had to take me to the restroom, had to, run the shower, had to do things that I don't think that she should have had to do. And I've taken a lot of this time to just reflect on myself. I am very lucky in a sense that this injury happened when it did, because no one can wrestle right now. So the small blessing that I have out of all of this is that my recovery time of actually missing week to week wrestling is going to be a lot less than I originally thought.
Right.
I thought that I was going to miss 10 months of shows and everything running. And it's not by any means me wishing that this continues. I'm going crazy with this stuff. I don't want this to continue. I want there to be a cure or some kind of compromise to where the world can get back to normal. But this was the small blessing that I did have. So I started focusing on that. And I realized after going to PT quite a few times that I have the opportunity to get in the best shape of my life, to get as strong as I possibly can. And when the time does come and that I can be there, I'm going to be the absolute best that I can be. And if Kaitlyn is the champion, which I hope she is not, I hope that Sadie and those guys can rally together and make sure that she is not, because I don't think that that's who Gary or you want to be the face of your promotion. I would certainly hope that that's not who you would want to be the face of your promotion. But if she is the champion and I come back, I'm going to take that away from her as fast as I possibly can. And I'm going to get it and I'm going to hold on to it, and no one is going to be able to take it away from me. And that is my mindset right now. That is my focus. I can't do anything about my knee. I can't miraculously make it work again and be able to wrestle. I can't do anything about that, but I'm going to focus on what I can control, and what I can control is to get in the best shape of my life and to come back as best as I possibly can.
Well, I mean, it definitely sounds like you've turned a corner mentally in the way that you're absorbing all this, and you're, I guess, for lack of a better term, dealing with it. I mean, there's really nothing else you can do, but it certainly doesn't sound like the same Hayden Ramsey, who January 25th resurrected, really didn't want have anything to do with anybody, was focused on the match, wouldn't be polite enough to make conversation. And I know that you definitely wanted to do this show today. So I got to tell you, for what it's worth, I can hear a change. And it's, as you said, you were humbled. Not that she humbled you. I don't want to make it sound that way. But I definitely do think that maybe your perspective has changed a little bit on this. And I don't know. In the long run, not to make it sound like something else, but in the long run, maybe that's good for you in terms of, look at the way I've always thought about anything in life is it's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with it, right? So if the worst happens, it's not, okay, the worst thing ever just happened. Well, nothing's going to change that. It's already happened. But what can change is how you deal with it moving forward. So you can either let it destroy you, or you can let it build you up, and you can come back better and stronger. And it sounds like you've chosen to do the latter instead of the former.
Right. And let me just be perfectly clear here. I definitely was not like this to begin with. You can ask my family. I did not want to talk to anybody. I isolated myself before we were required to isolate ourselves.
Right.
I isolated myself. I don't understand why this happened to me. I, methodically would go through what could have triggered this in her. I know I had been a good friend to her. I had given her opportunities. I mean, let's be honest, Tom. Did you know who Kaitlyn was before I brought her? Did you or Gary know who she was?
If I'm being honest, the answer is no, I didn't.
Exactly. And that's not me bragging. That's me showing that I gave her an opportunity, and this is what she did with that opportunity. I put myself out there, put my name out there for her to just come in and take me out for 10 months. And that ate me alive. As you mentioned, I'm not a very forthcoming person to begin with. And the fact that I had become vulnerable with her and had built a friendship with her to where I would, we would share things that are very personal that you share with your friends. And the fact that I would let her in, and for her to manipulate me, and to have already had this plan in place when I picked her up at her house and drove nearly 3 hours to the show. It's just, I can't explain it. There were many drinks involved before my surgery. There were many lonely nights, many angry nights, many self-pity nights. I didn't want to watch wrestling. I didn't want to talk wrestling. I didn't want to listen to the podcast I normally listen to. I didn't want to look at the memorabilia that's on my wall. I didn't want to see pictures of me with my idols. I didn't want to look at any of that, because at this time, it felt like my world had come to an end, because I was at the point where I was starting to get my name out there. People were starting to notice me. I was starting to get on a multitude of different shows that are at a high caliber level, that are streamed on Fight TV and, on the High Spots Network. And I was making a name for myself, and she had to take me out like that because she couldn't stand the attention I was getting. So there were many, many down points during this recovery. And keep in mind, I waited a few months before my surgery. So I had all of this time to just bottle up all of these emotions and kind of start to process them as much as I could. I guarantee you I didn't process any emotion for at least a month. It was just full on anger, wasn't talking to anybody, wasn't communicating with anybody, not even my family. My dog even got mad at me because I wasn't talking to him. And it came the point when I got picked up from surgery and I knew that I was going to have to rely on people, that I was going to have to let someone in. And it sounds kind of crazy when you talk about your family, but I'm not an open person to anyone. So the fact that I had to rely on my sister to help take care of me and to be vulnerable, it kind of opened my mind to things, and I talked to her a little bit about it, which she doesn't understand because she hates wrestling too. She hates that I do it for this purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And, she's the one that kind of put it in my mind that, hey, maybe this is, if you were going to get injured, maybe this was the time to do it because the world is shut down and you're truly not going to miss as much wrestling as you thought you were. So I really credit with my sister with helping me with that mentality.
So let me rewind a second because I suddenly just had a thought, and if I'm off base, please tell me. Not to do any conspiracy theories here or anything like that, but you said you put off surgery for a while. The first ever women's main event was scheduled to take place April 25th, had we been able to run it. And your surgery was the next week. Was that done by design? Was that just coincidence? Did you have a plan in place to maybe show up on the, and if you didn't, my apologies, but were you thinking on the 25th you were going to, I guess I'm just trying to understand where you were mentally. I know you said it was really hard during that time. Were you thinking I'm going to show up, or am I off base?
Initially that was my plan. Regardless of when I had my surgery, I was going to plan to be there. Even if I had to be put in a wheelchair, I wanted to be there because I wanted Kaitlyn to see me face to face. It didn't work out that way. The real reason my surgery didn't happen until the 30th is just because I decided to go to the top surgeon for knees at Ortho Carolina. And he was kind of booked up. But even if my surgery had happened in March, my plan was still to be there. But it's not as much as a conspiracy theory as you think it might be. It was kind of coincidental. But regardless of if and when my surgery was going to happen, I had plans to be there.
Well, the fans know what happened. Obviously, they're very much in touch with what's going on with the company. They know that you sent us a video detailing the day of your surgery and the message you sent to Kaitlyn shortly after recovery. You were still enjoying the anesthesia, it looked like. So
I was very, very, I was feeling very good. We'll just put it that way.
Right. And I know you said that you really, and I didn't really have, I mean, I guess we did kind of ask, but I didn't have to press the issue. You kind of volunteered to give updates. And, again, maybe I'm off base with this, but I really feel like there's maybe a different person on the other end of this phone right now because you really are to the point of letting people in. And, the fans, and you know how the fans are. I mean, they can hate you 1 second, but when they see you go down like that, especially it's something that you did nothing to deserve. I mean, you got a lot of people on your side. You need to know that there's a lot of people on your side right now. The fans are reaching out to us all the time asking how you are. So, not for nothing. If it means anything to you, I think the fact that you're putting forth an effort to have communication, open up communication lines with the fans, I think that says a lot about you on your part.
I'm definitely trying to be more open. I've never been one that truly interacts with the fans. I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. The night of our tag match, I had some fans want to come up and take pictures with me. That's fine, but I wanted my money.
Right.
I'm not one that's just going to sit there and smile in a picture for, you to put on Facebook or social media or whatever. I wanted my money. And after all of this, I've kind of had, a new mindset that maybe I do need to open up and be more vulnerable and connect with more people. And maybe it's time to stop being a loner and feeling like the world is on my shoulders and that I have to do everything myself and, make sure that I'm being selective of who I let into my life, but, still opening up and allowing people to come into it. And I think that the next time you'll see me, you'll see that my hope is to try to engage more with the fans and try to see their perspective of, they're there to have a good time. Why should I be a jerk to them? They're paying to see me. And for the longest time, I felt like you're here to see me, so sit down and enjoy what I give you. Whereas now I'm missing it so much that I really want that connection. I'm so, not to get all sad, but I'm so lonely not being able to wrestle that I crave an interaction with fans or with people in general. So I do think the next time you see me, there'll be a change. I can't tell you exactly what that change is going to be, but I guess we'll just have to see when I make my return.
Well, I know I, for one, cannot wait to see you back. I can't wait to get back. As we've said a couple of times during this episode, the COVID-19 thing is very real. It's crazy, dangerous. I wish more people took it seriously, if I'm being honest, but it is what it is. But it shut us down temporarily. I can't wait for us to get started back up. Hopefully that's soon. And, like I said, I can't wait for you to get back in the mix. I think, as we said before, you and Sadie have laid the foundation for women's wrestling in this company. And it's, you've got a long-term future in HVW. And as long as you want to be a part of it, I dare say you will be. And, I've been accused of buttering up the guests toward the end of the show, which is not my intention. I just want to show appreciation and respect for you taking time out of your day to talk to us and to let the fans in, as you said before. But I think it says a lot for you, the type of character you have, and it shows a lot toward your heart for this business. I want you to be able to end this interview as you want to. And I'm going to say thank you for doing this. We do appreciate it. But I can't really wrap this up today without asking you if you could give Kaitlyn a message. If you knew she was listening, I dare say she's going to listen to this. If you know she's listening, what is it that you want to say to her directly?
I'm going to keep it PG, and I'm strictly going to say what I stated earlier, and that is the fact that you may have taken away my opportunity to be the first ever women's champion, but you haven't taken away my opportunity to be the longest reigning women's champion, and that is a promise that I'm going to make to the fans, to the company, and to you, Kaitlyn. I dare you to try to come at me again, because this time my head is going to be on a swivel, and I'm going to be ready to fight.
It's well said. I can't think of anything else that you've left on the table there. I think that pretty much says it all. Hayden, I got to thank you again for joining us today. Thanks for taking the time. All the best to you on your recovery. Can't wait to see the updates from you. And all the best to you, and hope everything goes great for you in the next several months.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Folks, I think that's going to do it for us here today on the show. Again, we want to thank Hayden Ramsey for taking the time to talk to us today. Very enlightening interview. We hope you guys enjoyed that. I have to say it's probably one of the better shows that we've ever done. We want to continue getting better here on the podcast. We want to thank you guys again for joining us. Thanks for your support, man. We can't wait to get back in front of you. We are tentatively looking at June, as Hayden said earlier in the show today. We're still awaiting the good word from on high that we can actually start this thing back up again. So as soon as we get that word, we're going to inundate our social media with all the information about where and when you can see HVW back live again. So that's what we got for you. Thanks much for joining us here today, folks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Stay tuned for the next episode of the official High Velocity Wrestling Podcast.